They buried this knowledge quietly. Healers, herbalists, grandmothers, people who survived without hospitals or prescriptions used these 20 skills to treat infections, injuries, and disease. Most people have never heard of a single one. Subscribe, comment your state or country below, and share this with one person who needs it. Let's get into it. Skill 1: Pine Needle Brewing. Most people walk past pine trees every day with no idea they're standing beside one of nature's most powerful survival medicines. Indigenous peoples across North America and Siberia brewed pine needle tea through brutal winters. WWI soldiers were taught it to prevent scurvy when supply lines failed. Research indicates pine needles contain vitamin C concentrations up to 5 times higher than oranges. Studies suggest the volatile oils, alpha-pinene and beta-pinene, carry antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties that support immunity and respiratory health. Harvest young green needles, remove the brown sheath at the base, steep in hot, never boiling water for 10 minutes and sip. Boiling destroys the vitamin C. This skill was forgotten because you can't patent a pine tree, but the pine tree is still there, waiting. Skill 2: Charcoal Poultice Drawing. Ancient Egypt, medieval Europe, Ayurvedic medicine, healers across every civilization pressed charcoal paste directly onto infected wounds, boils, and bites to pull out toxins. Studies suggest activated charcoal absorbs bacteria and irritants through electrical charge, binding them to its surface and physically drawing them out of tissue. 1 teaspoon has the surface area of a football field. Mix powdered activated charcoal with water or flaxseed into a thick paste. Apply it to the infected area, cover with cloth, and leave overnight. Modern wound care replaced it with packaged creams, but the science behind charcoal never changed. Skill 3: Sunflower Leaf Fever Compress. You've grown them for beauty, you've eaten their seeds, but you never knew the leaves brought down fevers. Across rural Eastern Europe and Native American tradition, crushed sunflower leaves were applied to the forehead and wrists during dangerous fevers long before aspirin existed. Research indicates sunflower leaves carry mild febrifuge compounds, and their large surface area radiates body heat efficiently. Crush fresh leaves slightly, dampen with cool water, and lay them across the forehead and wrists, replacing every 20 minutes. This remedy vanished when fever reducers hit pharmacy shelves, but the plant still grows freely in your backyard. Skill 4: Clay Packing for Joint Pain. Long before the word arthritis existed, people buried aching joints in clay and walked away feeling like themselves again. Ancient Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians all documented therapeutic clay. The Dead Sea has been a healing destination for over 2,000 years. Studies suggest mineral-rich clays like bentonite carry a mild electromagnetic charge that interacts with inflamed tissue, pulls excess fluid from swollen joints, and delivers magnesium and silica directly through the skin. Mix bentonite clay with warm water into a thick paste. Apply a half-inch layer over the joint, wrap loosely, and leave for 30 to 60 minutes every other day. Clay doesn't come in a sleek tube with a celebrity endorsement, and that's exactly why it disappeared. Skill 5: Plant and Leaf Wound Sealing. Not the banana, the weed growing in your driveway crack right now. Native Americans called broadleaf plantain the white man's footprint because it followed settlers everywhere, and settlers reached for it immediately when cut or bit. Research indicates plantain contains allantoin, a cell-proliferating compound that accelerates skin regeneration, and aucubin, a natural anti-inflammatory. Studies suggest it reduces infection risk while simultaneously speeding tissue repair. Chew a fresh leaf or crush it to release juice and press it directly onto a wound or sting. You cannot sell what everyone already has. That's why this one disappeared. Skill 6: Yarrow Styptic Technique. A soldier on an ancient battlefield prayed this plant was growing nearby. Yarrow, literally named after Achilles, was documented independently for wound treatment by Greek, Roman, Chinese, and Native American healers. Studies suggest yarrow contains a chilitin which accelerates blood clotting, along with alkaloids with mild anesthetic properties. Pack fresh or dried yarrow firmly into a bleeding wound and hold pressure for 2 to 3 minutes. It also works crushed against a nosebleed. Yarrow grows wild across the entire northern hemisphere. There was never money in teaching people to use it, but it never stopped working. Skill 7: Bone Broth Fasting Protocol. Before it became a trendy carton in a grocery store, bone broth was the healing staple of every culture on Earth, used in extended fasts during recovery from serious illness, surgery, and digestive collapse. Research indicates it contains glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, amino acids that repair intestinal lining. Studies suggest the gelatin from long-simmered bones may seal the gut wall, addressing the root of systemic inflammation. Simmer bones with cartilage for at least 12 hours with a splash of apple cider vinegar. Strain, fast on this liquid for 24 to 72 hours during acute illness. This skill wasn't forgotten, it was commercialized into something unrecognizable. The homemade version remains the most powerful form. Skill 8 USNEA like an antibiotic dressing. That pale gray-green stringy growth hanging from old forest branches, healers knew exactly what it was. Usnea, called old man's beard, was packed into wounds and brewed for respiratory and urinary infections by Native American, European, and East Asian healers for centuries. Studies suggest usnic acid, Usnea's primary compound, inhibits gram-positive bacteria including staph, with potency some researchers have compared to pharmaceutical antibiotics. It also carries antifungal properties. Lay living Usnea directly into a cleaned wound as a dressing. It grows wild and cannot be patented. That's the full explanation for why nobody told you about it. Skill 9 Ginger compress for organ congestion. Traditional Japanese healers applied hot cloths soaked in strong ginger water directly over the liver, kidneys, and lungs to stimulate organ function and dissolve stagnation. This was a cornerstone of macrobiotic medicine long before Western science had a name for what it was doing. Research indicates gingerols and shaw gills penetrate skin tissue topically, triggering localized vasodilation. Studies suggest this dramatically increases blood flow to underlying organs and supports lymphatic drainage. Grate fresh ginger, wrap it in cloth, simmer in water, soak a towel in it, and apply to the target area as hot as is comfortable for 20 minutes. This practice required time, presence, and patience, none of which fit modern medicine's speed. In Japan, it never fully disappeared. Skill 10 Goldenrod Kidney Flush Tea. Every autumn it paints the fields gold, and nearly everyone who walks past it has no idea they're looking at one of the most powerful kidney cleansing herbs on the continent. Dozens of Native American tribes used goldenrod as a primary kidney and urinary tract remedy. European herbalists called it the sovereign wound herb. Studies suggest its saponins and flavonoids exert a gentle diuretic effect while reducing urinary tract inflammation. Research indicates it may help prevent mineral crystallization, the condition that leads to kidney stones. Steep a tablespoon of dried goldenrod in hot water for 10 minutes. Drink 2 to 3 cups daily for 1 week. It was buried under a false reputation. People blamed it for allergies caused by ragweed. That botanical mix-up erased it from public knowledge. But it never stopped working. Skill 11 Comfrey Root Bone Knitting. Traditional English healers called it knitbone because it did exactly that. Comfrey has been used for over 2,000 years to speed healing of fractures, sprains, and torn ligaments, applied as a root paste over broken bones by healers from ancient Greece through the American frontier. Studies suggest comfrey root contains extraordinary concentrations of allantoin, which stimulates the fibroblasts and osteoblasts responsible for rebuilding connective tissue and bone. Grate fresh comfrey root into a paste and apply a thick layer over the injured area daily. External use remains widely recognized and documented. For a sprain or strain, nothing in the plant world touches it. Skill 12 Mustard Plaster for Chest Congestion. Your great-grandmother kept dry mustard in the medicine cabinet, not the spice rack. Mustard plasters were the standard hospital treatment for bronchitis and pneumonia throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. Before antibiotics, they helped patients survive serious chest infections regularly enough to become standard protocol. Studies suggest the isothiocyanates released when dry mustard meets water create a powerful counter response that floods the chest wall with blood, delivering immune cells directly to infected lung tissue. Mix 1 part dry mustard with 4 parts flour. Add warm water into a paste. Spread on cloth, never bare skin. Apply to the chest for 15 minutes. Parts of Eastern Europe never stopped using this, and old nurses who still do will tell you nothing clears a chest faster. Skill 13 Oak Bark Germ Barrier Wash. Pre-industrial healers regularly treated infected wounds, mouth ulcers, and skin eruptions with a liquid that smelled like old wood, and it routinely worked. Oak bark decoctions were used across European, Native American, and Chinese traditions as an antimicrobial wound wash and gum treatment. Research indicates oak bark's high tannin content denatures bacterial membrane proteins on contact. Studies suggest significant inhibitory activity against E. coli, staph, and several fungal species. Simmer a tablespoon of dried oak bark in 2 cups of water for 20 minutes. Use it cooled as a wound rinse, mouthwash for gum infection, or soaked cloth on infected skin. The tannins in oak haven't changed. The tree is still there. Skill 14 Cold Water Vascular Training. This isn't a wellness trend. Sebastian Nape, a Bavarian priest who healed himself from what doctors had declared terminal tuberculosis, built a complete hydrotherapy system of cold and warm water applications that he used to treat thousands of patients in the 19th century. Studies suggest deliberate cold water immersion triggers norepinephrine release up to 300%, surges metabolic rate, and trains the vascular system similarly to cardiovascular exercise. Research indicates regular cold exposure reduces inflammatory markers, improves mood, and enhances immune function. Finish every morning shower on cold for 60 seconds 3 to 4 days a week. The results build over weeks quietly, steadily. Nape wrote it all down. The books are still there. Skill 15, Elderberry Hourly Protocol. What's in those pretty bottles at the health store is a fraction of what traditional healers actually knew about elderberry. The original protocol wasn't once daily. It was every 2 to 3 hours for the first 48 hours of illness. That intensity was the key the modern bottled version lost. Research indicates elderberry anthocyanins bind directly to surface proteins of certain viruses, potentially blocking cell entry. Multiple studies suggest elderberry preparations significantly reduce duration and severity of flu-like illness. Make concentrated syrup from fresh or dried berries simmered with raw honey. Take it every few hours at illness onset. Use it the old way, you will feel the difference. Skill 16, Tobacco Leaf Sting Poultice. Before you react to the name, stay with me. What indigenous healers did with tobacco has nothing to do with cigarettes. Fresh moistened tobacco leaves were applied to insect stings, bee and wasp bites, and scorpion stings as emergency field medicine that saved lives. Studies suggest nicotine and alkaloids in tobacco leaf act as a topical vasoconstrictor when applied directly to skin, limiting venom spread through tissue. Research also indicates the mild alkalinity of fresh tobacco may neutralize the acidic components of bee and ant venom. Moisten a small piece of fresh or piped tobacco and apply it firmly to the sting site for 10 to 15 minutes. This skill was buried under the justified stigma of smoking. But a leaf on a wasp sting is a completely different thing. Traditional healers knew the difference. Skill 17, Castor Oil Pack Liver Detox. Edgar Cayce documented thousands of case reports about this technique, and almost no one today has heard of it. Castor oil packs, flannel soaked in cold-pressed castor oil and applied to the abdomen with gentle heat, were used for centuries in Ayurvedic and European folk medicine to stimulate liver and lymphatic function. Studies suggest ricinoleic acid penetrates deeply into subcutaneous tissue when applied topically. Research indicates regular castor oil application may support lymphocyte production and increase lymphatic circulation. Your lymphatic system has no pump. This pack gives it one. Soak flannel in cold-pressed castor oil. Place it over the right side of your abdomen. Apply a heating pad on top and rest for 45 minutes 3 to 4 times a week. Healing that requires rest and time is hard to monetize. That's why this one went quiet. Skill 18, Juniper Berry Steam for Sinus and Lung Infection. In Scandinavian forests, Navajo hogans, and ancient Roman bathhouses, healers were steaming the same dark purple berry and clearing some of the most stubborn respiratory conditions known to man. Juniper berries were used as fumigant, steam inhalant, and internal medicine for lung disease, urinary infection, and joint inflammation across traditions worldwide. Research indicates juniper steam contains high concentrations of terpenoin 4-ol, also found in tea tree oil, with documented antimicrobial activity in the respiratory tract. Studies suggest juniper compounds reduce mucus viscosity, making secretions easier to expel. Crush a tablespoon of fresh berries into just boiled water, drape a towel over your head, and inhale deeply for 15 minutes twice daily during illness. If you have a sinus infection that nothing from the pharmacy touches, remember this. Skill 19, Cabbage Leaf Compress for Deep Inflammation. Something is about to shift in this list, because what comes next resolves deep tissue inflammation without drugs, without side effects, using something from any grocery store. Cold cabbage leaf compresses were used across European folk medicine, Indian healing, and ancient Greek medicine for joint swelling, bruising, and mastitis. Midwives taught this to every nursing mother for generations. Research indicates cabbage contains sinigrin and glucosinolates that release anti-inflammatory sulfurous compounds when the leaf is slightly crushed and warmed by body heat. Studies suggest these compounds penetrate skin and measurably reduce localized inflammatory activity at the source. Roll large outer cabbage leaves with a rolling pin to crack the cell walls. Apply directly to the inflamed area cold or at room temperature. Secure with cloth and replace every 2 hours. Research on cabbage compresses for mastitis has been published in peer-reviewed nursing journals. This is not folklore, and now you know. Skill 20, Deliberate EARTHING and Electrical Grounding. We have arrived at the one that changes everything. For virtually the entire history of human existence, people were in constant direct physical contact with the ground, bare feet on earth, sleeping on soil, working in dirt. This was the default human electrical state until rubber-soled shoes, elevated beds, and insulated buildings sealed us away from it. And something changed at the cellular level when that happened. The Earth carries a negative electrical charge, a virtually infinite reservoir of free electrons at its surface. Your body, under constant bombardment from inflammation, oxidative stress, and electromagnetic exposure, runs chronically electron deficient. Traditional healers across dozens of cultures, without knowing the physics, instinctively connected healing with contact with the earth. They walked patients barefoot on morning grass. They buried feverish people in cool soil during recovery. Research indicates that direct physical contact between the human body and the Earth's surface allows free electrons to flow into the body through the soles of the feet, neutralizing free radicals, the positively charged molecules that drive oxidative damage, chronic inflammation, and accelerated aging. Multiple peer-reviewed studies suggest earthing measurably reduces cortisol levels, normalizes circadian rhythms, and lowers inflammatory blood markers within minutes of contact. Why it works: inflammation and cellular damage are electrical phenomena. Free radicals are electron-hungry molecules tearing through your tissue. The Earth offers limitless electrons. When your feet touch bare ground, you complete a circuit your physiology was designed across millions of years of evolution to rely upon, and we simply stopped doing it. Walk barefoot on grass, soil, sand, or natural rock for 30 minutes each morning. Do it on damp ground, conductivity is higher. Sit with your back against a large tree. Garden without gloves. Research published in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health documented sleep improvements, pain reduction, and cortisol normalization in participants who earthed for just 30 minutes daily. This skill was not forgotten by accident. A healing practice that costs nothing, requires no product, and connects you to something older than any medicine ever synthesized poses a quiet problem for a world that has commodified health. But the Earth is still there, patient, constant, carrying that charge, waiting for the soles of your feet. 20 skills, all forgotten, all still working. The knowledge was never destroyed, it was just set aside, and now it's yours. Comment your state or country below. I read everyone. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and share this with one person who needs it.